I would like to invite Dr. Zoltán Bajmoci from University of Szeged to hold his presentation about what makes a person or a group underrepresented. So Zoltán, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. I'm really happy to hold this introductory speech today about underrepresentation and equal opportunities in higher education. So diversity, inclusion, equal opportunities have gained more and more attention in higher education recently. But also we still have a lot to do in this field. So what is this all about? People in a society and also within a university are diverse. Sometimes our systems or institutions or processes are blind to this diversity, which causes problems with regard to equal opportunities. I tried to list here some of the most important categories with this regard in the life of a university. So for example, if we think about students with disability, here evidently equality issues may emerge. The same is true with regard to certain age categories like senior or very young students, or to different family backgrounds, such as coming from a low-income family, or students who lost their parents, or diversity can be due to differences in gender, sexual orientation or identity, or ethnicity, race, and religion. And it is very important to understand that to this diversity, sometimes our processes and institutions are blind because they are all designed for the average. On the top of this, some members of these groups can be subject to discrimination and even oppression. So due to these social factors, some groups may be underrepresented in higher education, which means that their share within the university is smaller than in the wider society. So they don't have the same chance to enter the university. And even if their share is not smaller, their voice may not be listened to the same extent. And that is a wider interpretation of underrepresentation. So what can universities do? Universities can intervene in many fields. They may have responsibilities due to their employees. For example, if we just think of the gender pay gap, for example, they may intervene with regard to their students and even their prospective students. Since we told some members of these groups may not have the same chance to enter higher education. But we may start to change or introduce changes with regard to guests of the universities. For example, we may start to organize accessible events. Or we have responsibilities as a medical university towards the patients of healthcare, or the consumers of other services of the universities like museums, libraries, botanical gardens, and so on. The universities may also reach out to the local community, and also it may have a responsibility towards the wider society to change public discussions, to shape policies, the mindsets of people, so to take on an advocacy role. So we see that equality and diversity issues emerge in a very complex way in the life of a university. Just to bring it closer through one example, out of the above mentioned categories, if you just think about students with disabilities and how to create an inclusive campus for them, first of all, it is evident that we need accessible infrastructure to be able to host students with disabilities, but not just accessible for wheelchair users, but accessible for many kinds of disabilities, such as blind students, deaf students, autistic students, and so on and so forth. But this is so much not enough to arrive to a really inclusive campus. We need the diversity of supported teaching and learning methods. We need accessible student life. We need accessible university events. We need a city which provides accessible services to its citizens, like mobility, accommodation in the city. Sources to diversity and equality issues. For example, okay, I think, can you hear me now?
I think we have some minor technical difficulties. I can hear you. I really hope all of our participants can hear you as well. Maybe you can try to share your screen again. Let's give it another go.
Sorry, and I don't know where I was lost, but I guess it was somewhere here. In order to arrive to an accessible campus, we don't just need accessible infrastructure. We need much more than this: diversity of teaching and learning methods, accessible student life, university events, and a city which provides accessible services like mobility and accommodation. We need to rethink the language we use. We need to reconsider what we think as normal or adequate. And we can dedicate some of our resources directly to address inequality issues. For example, at our faculty, we dedicate some courses directly to these issues, where students learn through volunteering at patients' organizations or advocacy organizations. We carry out research together with disability advocacy organizations, for example, or we try to consider this when we organize events. And to finish with, let me tell sort of a takeaway message, and let me show you this picture, which was the opening picture of an exhibition we had 2 years ago at the faculty building. If we want to further equality at the campus, the point is not trying to compensate for disadvantages. The point is try to provide circumstances where disadvantages do not emerge. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Zoltan, for this very informative and engaging presentation. We are really excited to hear about these possibilities. So now I will hand the floor over to Isabel, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Shoshana. And just a quick reminder that if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the Q&A and we will address them at the end. So now it's time for the next segment of our conference. And we have asked some students from different UGLO partner universities what they know about equal representation and also to share their own experiences. So we're going to show you 3 videos, and in each video you will see students answering one question. And after watching the video, we will also ask a question to the audience through a poll, and then we will discuss it shortly with some of our panelists. So the question in the first video is, are you aware of any underrepresented groups in your surroundings and the problems they may be facing? And if yes, are you trying to contribute to their equal representation? So let's watch the video.
Being underrepresented, both in the bigger picture in Sweden, but also at Lund University. For example, women are a clearly underrepresented group in the academy, both as doctoral students, but also later on as professors.
I am myself part of the LGBTQ plus community, which is a well underrepresented group worldwide, and I am myself contributing to its equal representation by just educating people around me and trying to make them understand what is natural.
Honestly, I do not have a lot of awareness of underrepresented groups in my surroundings, but I do recognize though 2 groups. And one of them is those who do not have parents with a university degree, and also women. I have not actively been working with equal representation per se, but I have reached out to my previous high school and mentored 2 girls who did not have parents with an engineering background.
I believe there are a lot of groups who are suffering from inequalities. However, I would like to talk about a general problem that affects the people from all around the world who decide to study or live abroad, and the unequal conditions they are facing when they are trying to find an internship or a full-time job. The way I'm trying to help is to give advice and support to the people who I personally know, with the hope that they can share the information with their surroundings if they find it helpful.
Underrepresented groups are found anywhere. We can find them in the workplace and university, and even in our society, the city where we live, basically everywhere. And while I am aware of the presence of such underrepresented groups, one that is very dear to me is the underrepresentation of women in the field of computer science. In fact, while women are the pioneers in this field, in the past few decades, we have seen less and less women taking on programming jobs. And as a computer scientist, I will always be encouraging women to follow their dreams, and if it's programming, then they should go for it. And I'm always trying to have equal representation.
I'm aware of underrepresented groups when I'm attending lectures at my university, since my classmate has a physical impairment, forces him to sit in a wheelchair. People with disabilities face problems both physically and mentally. For example, they have to face negative stereotypes and challenges physically also.
Well, now that you have heard what your fellow students have to say, it's time to share your own opinion. By now you should see a poll with the question, are you aware of any underrepresented groups in your surroundings? On this anonymous poll, you have the chance to tell us your experience. You have 30 seconds to submit your answers. And now I would like to share the poll results with you. As you can see, almost 70% of our audience today is indeed aware of underrepresented groups in their surroundings, and almost 30% is not aware but are familiar with them. So almost 30% are actually aware but they're not very familiar with them. And 3% of our audience today is not aware of any underrepresented groups.
Thank you, Diana.
And now I would like to, yes, continue. I just wanted to give back the floor to you.
Thank you. Yes, so to follow up on what the audience have answered, we would like to ask Thomas from Lund University a question. So our question to you, Thomas, is how aware would you say that today's young generation is of underrepresented groups?
That is a very complex question, and I'm probably not an expert to answer it, but what I could answer is that society has, during the last decades, changed a lot. So of course, younger people growing up in a changed society will also be different. They grow up in a much more interesting, open, beautiful, but also more complex society than we did, and therefore are aware, I would say, of more diversity than we were. At the same time, that is within each context, but there is also a worrying trend, of course, of polarization and fake news or whatever, which is of course also affecting younger people. So that would be my warning sign for the future. We can't take it for granted that each generation become better and more aware. We have to always make sure and fight for that.
Thank you very much for your answer. Now it's time for us to continue with the second video. So in this video, students have answered the question, what do you think is the best approach to reach equal representation, and who do you think is responsible?
The first step to overcome such unequal representation starts with each and every one of us, to stop labeling, for example, a job as a man job or as a woman job. So in the field of computer science, we should stop saying that this is a man's job or women are not made to program.
It's hard to say which approach is the best, since not everyone with impairments want to be treated the same way. But one basic thing is to adapt the environment so it's accessible to all. And also, I think it's important that people without impairments don't automatically assume that people with impairments don't want to do some things or can't do some things. I think you should see to every case separately. At university level, I think the university management is responsible for equal treatment. But in the long run, I think the Swedish government has a really big responsibility. They can issue guidelines and give tools to prevent and punish unequal treatment.
This problem is more complex to just point at persons who can resolve it. On one part, I feel like this problem has a natural process of improving and resolving itself as new generations come with a more open-minded view. On the other hand, there is a lot of responsibility for certain people and organizations to take steps towards having equal conditions and representation as much as possible, such as governments, embassies, and universities for students.
I think everyone is always responsible, but for sure, if the law doesn't accept it, then who will?
To include more women in the academy, the first and best approach, I think, is to hire more women. In that way, we as students find more women as lecturers and as role models, and can also inspire to become women in the academy. Though it's not an easy task, and the academy needs to change its underlying structures and prejudice. The main responsibility to prevent lack of representation of all groups in Sweden, it falls on the government. But I also think that every actor in society is obligated to make their environment as inclusive as possible.
So one approach I strongly believe in is to educate and make everyone aware of the underrepresented groups. Then we can all help to inspire and inform the underrepresented groups of the opportunities that arise from an education like mine. So I do believe a big responsibility lies at the universities to identify underrepresented groups and work together with high schools and other functions in community to make equal representation.
And now it is the time for the second poll. As we mentioned before, you have 30 seconds to answer, and you have the chance to say who do you think is responsible for underrepresentation. We provided you 3 possibilities. Feel free to choose the option you think is the one to hold for reason. Once again, this is an anonymous vote and a safe place to express your ideas. Now I would like to share the results for you for the question, who do you think is responsible for creating equal representation for all? 63% of our audience has chosen the answer politicians and government. 29% of our audience actually thinks that the education institutions are responsible for that, while 8% think that the media are responsible for that. And now I would like to address a question to Professor Zoltán Bajmóci, and I would like to ask him to reflect on the student answers in the video.
Thank you. I think the students made some excellent points in this video, and what I would just like to emphasize is that I think what we need is to stop thinking in stereotypes. But for this, we need to gain knowledge on each other, and we need to build bridges. We need personal relations. So this means that we really need to start to cooperate with the members of underrepresented groups on an equal terms. and fight injustices, inequalities together with them on an equal terms. And while a lot of actors are responsible, I think beside governments, universities both have opportunities and also responsibilities on this field. I think universities may become leading actors or so-called champions on this field who shape the mindsets of people and shape public discussions.
Thank you very much for your answer. It's now time for us to watch the third and final video. So in this video, the students are addressing the question, can you share a personal experience or a story where you have witnessed unequal treatment or lack of representation?
I have not experienced myself to be in the underrepresented group, I say. I have felt the privilege to be in the majority with engineering parents. So when I have expressed how much help I got from my mom, I have had friends being astonished by that and said that they have never been able to get that help from their parents. And I get a sense of loneliness and struggling, which makes me only admire them more about all their knowledge that they have today and how much they have struggled to get there. And I also feel very grateful for my privilege. So it's definitely benefiting everyone to bring the differences to attention.
My personal experience is related to my classmate whom I mentioned before. He sits in a wheelchair and is repeatedly treated unequal. The faculty is obligated to arrange a proper seat for him in the classroom, a special table and chair, but they constantly fail to do so. I think this creates a really weird and exposing situation for my classmate, since this has to be arranged last minute every time.
I can tell about one story as an experience and as an example. A friend of mine decided to move to another country a few years ago. I was trying to help him to find a job. He found a position which was advertised in English, and even though he met all the requirements and his English was excellent, the response he got from the company was that they don't employ people who cannot speak the native language. And he was also overqualified, according to them.
I am lucky enough because I never experienced any hate against my identity, but it does happen a lot. We've seen it in Orlando, but we've seen it in France as well, more recently with Lily, an 8-year-old transgender girl. She experienced a lot of hate and critics everywhere on social media and medias in general because of her identity, even if she's only 8 years old.
I have an experience from my personal life. At the end of each semester, all students at the university make an evaluation of the course that they just had. And the women who are lecturers are always being much more criticized and are facing harder critique than the men. And they have comments on their looks and their appearance, factors that are absolutely unnecessary for their knowledge and their work as teachers.
And I have already witnessed such unequal representation. While I didn't take it seriously at first, but when I decided to go into computer science, I've heard a lot of comments from this, such comments saying that it is not for women and such, but I never took them seriously until I got into class and I realized we were only 3 girls among the rest of the students. And therefore, I will always be advocating to stop such unequal representation.
It's time for our last poll for today, where we want to know if you ever experienced or witnessed unequal treatment to a person because of their background or ethnicity. Feel free to share your opinion. You have 30 seconds to answer the poll. And now I would like to share the answers of the last poll with you. As you can see, 46% of our attendees have answered with yes, I have experienced it, and 17% of our attendees have not experienced unequal treatment, while 37% of our attendees have witnessed it but have not experienced it themselves. Thank you for sharing your answers with us.
Thank you very much, Diana. So I would actually like to direct a question to Ayman from IM Swedish Development Partner. Do you have any advice for what a person could do in case of experiencing or witnessing unequal treatment?
First, thank you for the question, but I think it's more yeah, the equality is a long struggle, and we all witness inequality in our daily life in different scales. But I think when it came to the university issues, I think the university itself is responsible for that, and even so, yeah, the student can go to student union, and even so, because here in Sweden there's a lot of civil society organization working with in a voluntary based, working with inequality issues, as well as the equality ombudsman here in Sweden that you can reach by different means. But I believe as well in the civil courage that we have a responsibility. When we witness, or if we witness something like that, we have to react and act directly, and that's, I think, it will help to some extent. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's very good and useful advice. I would like to ask the same question to Zoltan from University of Szeged. What would you recommend or advise in that situation?
I could very well connect to the last sentence. I think we shouldn't or can't just leave to the members of the underrepresented groups to try to solve inequality issues. We can't leave them alone to cope with these issues. So those who are privileged enough not to be subject to discrimination and unequal treatment, we have the same responsibility to act and to learn about the proper ways to act and help. And this is always needs to be done in cooperation with the members of the groups in question. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you as well. So it's time for the next presentation in our conference, and I would like to invite Ayman Adelamin from IM Swedish Development Partner. It's time for his presentation, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will share my Yes. Yeah, my name is Ayman Adelamin. I'm working as program manager at IM Swedish Development Partner, IM Individuell Människohjälp, which is based in Lund, south of Sweden. Today we'll talk about RådRum, which is mean, I think, we didn't have the translation here, but it's advisory room. And this is a project or a model pathway for empowerment and inclusion. So when I talk about a RådRum or advisory room, we mean that we organize an advisory service for all people to, if they have questions about Swedish society or any question related to their daily lives. And the advice in RådRum, it is free of charge, it's free to come to RådRum, and impartial, that we are not representing some organization or some governmental agency. Instead, we are just civil society organization, not representing someone. Instead of that, we try to make it possible for the people. And all the advice is confidential. We share the information that's shared in RådRum. We cannot share it with a third part. That's to give like safe space for the visitor that came to RådRum and seek help and advice. And it's open for all. I think that the way of opening all the represented group or unrepresented groups to came to work at a project like RådRum, that to find answer to different kind of question. And it's a general issue. We are not having a specialty. We are not lawyers. We are not working with technology issues, but we have a general advisement, and it's led by voluntary advisors. That's, I think, is it's open space for people within the society to contribute with their own experience, and the people who came newly to Sweden to contribute by their experiences. And it's voluntary to visit RådRum. You don't have to be sent by any agency or government. You have to come by yourself. And it's based on joint ownership. We are not owning the question by ourselves. Instead, that we, together with the visitors, try to find a solution. And that's, we can hear, instead of have them and we and this perspective, that we don't accept it or tolerate it in our work. And this how it's worked, like two persons sitting in together, and this an example from RådRum. She's a volunteer advisor. She helped RådRum. I am an advisor, so that I can give back to others. And most of our volunteers, the people that came in as people who they have a question, they seek an advice, and after a while they became a volunteers. And I think this is one of our role to strengthen or to empower people to present themselves in the society, and even that use their own experience in the society and give to other people as well. Our goal is to increase the condition for faster integration, establishment of people, and inclusion of people. They are newly arrived to Sweden, and increase the trust and democratic participation in the Swedish society. So this kind of project, and even that's our target group, they will get to increase the knowledge about their rights and obligations towards society, and to increase the knowledge about the human rights. What do you have for rights, and what are you obligated for? And to strengthen the individual, to empower themselves, and that's by give a lot of tools to person that they can understand. Okay, I have to decide on my own life by myself if I get to know all my rights, and this will definitely strengthen the social contracts and create opportunity for the individuals to involve in civil society, and that will increase their knowledge or the competence in order to find a job or seek jobs in the labor markets. And this from our session in Lund. What kind of added value that RådRum contributed is all of our volunteers. Our goal for the volunteers should be 50% from the yeah, people, they newly arrived to Sweden, and also 50% of them, yeah, people, they have been living Sweden all their lives. And this will lead to a valuable intercultural exchange and wide range experience, skills such as language, because we don't use like interpreters in our work. Instead of that, we recruit people from the stakeholder groups that they can talk the language. Yeah, such as Arabic language, Tikrinja, Somaliska, this Somali, and all these languages. And also that it will be like social platform that you exchange experience with other people and also contribute with your own knowledge. The voluntary advisors who involved in RådRum, yeah, they became part of a democratic organization. They can influence, they can advocate for themselves, and this will create the participation, and this can be influence the democracy, creating in the society as instead of the governmental voluntary work that you cannot advocate, you cannot influence to some extent, like when you are part of civil society organizations. The important perspective from this kind of project is volunteer committed to strengthen the trust in between the people, and the individuals all should always come first, and it's a collaboration between the governmental, private sector, and civil society, because we believe that all these sectors are responsible to achieve equality in the society or to achieve a sustainable development, and that's considered to be main parts of the achieving the agenda of 2030. RådRum effects are, RådRum has different effects, like contribute to increasing development, to increase their rights, opportunities to exercise their rights, and contribute to the access to social context, increase economic inclusion through, if you are volunteering RådRum, this kind of, are you newly arrived to Sweden, you came to Sweden, you find a voluntary work, you get education through this voluntary work, and you get a lot of references, and that it can help the person to find a job, and we from our project can be a reference toward this person, and also it will strengthen this personal network to meet different people from different backgrounds, and the participation. And the people that should be participated are the stakeholders should drive their questions by themselves. We advocate for different kind of human rights issues, but I think to have a representation from the stakeholder, that will enhance our advocacy work. And here, this is in Sweden, it's Swedish language, but this is what kind of work, like people, they came, this is the cases that we get, like finding job, question about studies, question about budget and economy, migration and asylum question, health issues, engagement in civil society, question about accommodations, family and parentalship, and also different kind of question that have to do with all our society. And this is how the visitors we can see within these years, and how many visitors visit our work every month. It's between like 110 and 120. This is the average every month. And also what kind of support or advice people are seeking. People, they have question about information. People seeking like, interpretation of letters, contact with authorities, contact with other organizations, understand a letter or a blanket or this form that they have to fill it. And also different kind of study, helping to decide on something and get some advice in different issues related to your daily life. And which sectors through our work we can see who is responsible, because I refer to the previous questions that which authority is responsible for different questions, and here we can see is mostly is the governmental, is often this the governmental sector, but is as well as the private sector have responsibility, and even so the civil society or the non-governmental sector have responsibility. But now through this project we can see where is the defect, and we can contribute to dialogue with the authority. This is the voices from our work, and this is, people have been in as visitors or volunteers. They talk about their own experience from our work. And we think this is a way of measure our impact, to ask directly question to the people that have been involved in the project. And here it is from the governmental official, these municipalities, people work with the municipalities and they have the collaboration with this kind of project. And that's, we think, we complement each other, and that we have this perspective all the time, that leave no one behind. We think this is the most important, and to leave no one behind, we have to collaborate with governmental sector, academia, media, civil society, all the sector within the society. Yeah, this is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayman. It was a really interesting presentation, and we are really happy to see how you can accommodate and support foreigners building their lives in Sweden. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite Fanny Katai and Sandra Rostas, students from the Christian Roma College of Szeged, to introduce how the college is helping them in pursuing studies and their careers.
Hello, my name is Sandra Rostas, and we are going to speak about the Christian Roma College in Szeged. Our college is a special dormitory for Roma students and for not Roma students who are in difficult circumstances. Our college has a mission which contains these 5 main keywords: Roma, spirituality, extra courses and training programs, university, students, and college. But the main 2 factors are Roma and Christian. Our main mission is the rising of the Roma population, to promote Roma, not Roma dialogue, to give a chance, and to creating a supporting environment for the students. And we, to achieve this, we have special programs. The other important thing about our college that it's a Christian college, so our financial supporter is the Catholic Archbishop. If you want to come to this college, it's not necessary to be a Christian, but it's required to accept the Christian principles. We have a college pastor. Sometimes we have Catholic masses, and we have special programs about Christianity too. And this is our building. It's close to the train station. 10 boy and 10 girl can stay, and in one room there are 2 persons, so compared to other dormitories it's quite comfortable. And there are some pictures about our college.
So I continue with our scholarship program. In our college, there are 3 main types of scholarship programs. It depends on how long time we are in the college. When we are first year college participants, we are in the junior program. When we are in the second year, we are the so-called mid-year programmers, and from the third year, we are in the senior program. These programs contain self-developmental courses individually everyone has a mentor, an adult whom we can talk to in any kind of situation. We also have community events, which means that we are in separated groups, approximately 6 people in each. And the most common topic of these is food, because in this way, many people will join us from the college. And that is the aim of these events, to get together and be like a family. We also have public life events when a guest comes to us, mostly a famous Roma person, and we have a discussion with her experiences in life and about underrepresented situations. SESO is a Hungarian acronym for Social Coexistence Helping Courses. This program is for high school students in Szeged. The purpose is to show younger generations the Roma culture, the stereotypes through our own experiences. So we go to schools and have a discussion with students there. The other program for high school students is Cserhaja, but this is a special program for underprivileged Roma students who would like to go to higher education, and they get helping hands in preparing for example, language exams, developing social and professional skills, and some mentors help each student. They usually participate in it for 1 or 2 years. And these are the programs we can participate in, and that I'm really proud and grateful for being the part of this college. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. We are really happy to see how you can have such an opportunity from the college. Thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you.
And now I would like to ask Mr. Ágos Tiedi, juggling instructor, to talk about how the juggling courses help both the social and study skills of students with learning difficulties.
Good afternoon. My name is Ágos. I'm a juggler instructor, and I show how we can teach young people's juggling and how does it help them for their life. I share my screen. So we work in the Life Management Counseling Center, and so our juggling course started 2014 here in Szeged. The Students Counseling Center of the University of Szeged announced our course. We work together a special program with those young students who have some learning disabilities like dyslexia. So this course is optional, so anybody can join us. In the course, we presented many juggling equipment. During the semester, the students have tried 4 different tools. This is a very playful course, of course. So the first time we tried to connect with the students some group games, and we move them and do something big move games and assess their handling of the ball. So we use, and the students use 4 different tools because they have different moves and we use them differently. I present these tools. The first is the plate. The plate is like a simple plate, but they are trying to rotate with a stick and try to balance it in the middle. So this is it's the first look, it's so easy, but they are tried a lot of when they are do that well. The next is the balancing. We use them with these clubs too. In the small videos, see all of the people like trying to not just the top, so they are trying with the bottom, and it's not so easy. It's most important, I think, the free ball and the free ball cascade. The first is the free ball and the free ball cascade. The students start with one ball, throw and catch. This move, they are try to left and right hands too. So they are try to throw with one hand the ball and catch to the other one. And if it's good, they are try with two and later three. And here, this small video, you see they are tried not just one person, they are doing two person, where somebody start with left hand and the other person is doing his right hand too. It's a little bit easier than just one person do the free ball cascade, because there is just focus just one hand. The poi is not a typical juggling equipment. I think anybody is seeing fire jugglers too. This is a more difficult than the free ball cascade, because the whole arm is moved cross around, not just the right and not just the left hand, it's both crossing. So this is a very, very difficult movement for not just those people who have learning disabilities. I think it's it's a so difficult movement who have just tried to this movement. The flower stick. This is two stick, and there are in the base stick, like the flower stick, they have flower heads. This is difficult because they are not just playing with stick, they are trying to balancing with another stick with the third. So I think it's more difficult than the free ball cascade. And the fourth and the last equipment is the tie below. In the small video, they are see throwing and catching the tie below. The balancing is the same important, these items too. And I show something, not just the course, we are teaching kids also. It's easier teaching kids because they are more flexible than the bigger students. And in 2014, we organized first juggling day in Szeged, sorry. And after that, we do private classes too. In the private classes, we teach just one kid, and it's in here the kids are do tricks better because we just focused one kid. I think last year we started our group sessions too. Many kids like it because first of all we started with playing all of the items, and later we started the juggling movements. And here is the younger videos. We teach them all of the day. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, August, for your presentation. So part of these conferences that we will have is to invite local initiatives to share their experiences and to share their work and give them a space. So thank you very much for joining us. And now it's time for the final presentation of today. I would like to hand over to Thomas Blage from Lund University who's going to talk to us about the importance of underrepresented groups for excellence and relevance.
I need the former speaker to stop sharing, otherwise I can't share.
Yes, exactly. August, if you, let's see, I think I can do it from here. Okay, so now you should be able to share your screen, Thomas.
Yes, let's see. So, thank you so much for asking me to come here, and in 15 minutes I'm going to try to talk about this, and I'm so sorry if it's going to be a bit rushed. There's a lot of different things to juggle when you want to work with this topic. So I'm Thomas Brage, I'm a professor of physics, and I usually say, obviously I'm coming and talking about these kind of things, but I have for the last 20 years worked on these questions, and among other things, I'm working on it in the context of what's called the League of the European Research Universities, which has a policy group for EDI, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. And I'm also now a co-I for the GenderX, and GenderX, as you can see here, is about gender for excellence in research, and that's a project, Horizon 2020 project we just started, so it's very exciting. So what am I going to try to say today in 15 minutes? Well, I'm going to try to say something about research, a few highlights. I'm going to say something about advice that this Lero can give you, and also some other advice, a little checklist on how one can work for this. I always start with one of my favorite researchers in gender and diversity. It's Londa Schiebinger from Stanford. She's famous for her gendered innovation project. There is a homepage for it, for example. And yes, it's about gender, but of course the ideas of gendering research can also be to diversify or make diversity perspective coming in. She says that what very often we think about is just saying, oh, we have to fix the numbers. We have to be more diverse and just look at that. But the problem is we could then be too much focused on just fixing the minorities, thinking about what is wrong with them, why can't they fit in, how should we get them to start studying in other universities or working with us. So what she says is you must go further. You have to focus on the institutions and maybe even fixing on the knowledge. And so I think it's very important to move away from just thinking about minorities as something you should recruit. We have to think about why do they not come? Why do they not stay? And what are we doing maybe wrong in our knowledge production, our research and teaching? It's also, as you all are aware of, we have a problem with leaking pipelines. If you belong to a minoritized group, you might then experience a pipeline, a leaky pipeline. And of course, this idea is that some people have a tailwind when they go through their career. Some other people are pushed away or choose not to stay due to some of the reasons that is listed here. But the leaky pipeline, the idea of that there is one pipeline for everybody is not true. There is really, if you look at recent studies, for example, the Harvard project, that when they interview different minorities or different groups of people, the reason why they stay in the university might be very different. So me as a middle-aged Caucasian man can maybe not judge what will make my PhD students stay in the university. What do they expect and what will make them thrive? I will just mention some of the conclusion from a recent position paper that comes from the Lero policy group for equality, diversity, and inclusion on why we need to change. And you can find it here, and I assume that those PowerPoints will be made available to the participants so you can find these things. So why is diversity so important? Well, it's an opportunity for universities. We need to be in tune with the society. We need to include the greatest talents, and we need to realize the potential of the staff and the students we have. So that's the first three. So what does that mean? Well, the society needs us as a critical, but also as a fair partner. We need to work. One of our tasks is to to propel social and other mobility. We have to enrich our learning. We have to be in tune with time. And we have also, as already been pointed out, create role models for other young people. Why do we not include the greatest talents? We know, everybody knows, that our metrics doesn't work. And there is a tremendous lot of work to try to change that. The metrics is flawed. We have to revise what is a merit. Maybe it's a merit to be from a minority. We know that our universities are absolutely infected by bias, and that's like everywhere else in the society, and that affects our careers, that affects our selection processes, and that destroys the meritocracy. We have to make sure meritocracy can be true. Why do we not realize the potential of staff and students? We don't have diverse teams. Teams, sorry, misspelling. And if we have that, we know we will get the better outcomes. We have stereotypes, that's already been pointed out, about people, which kind of bind them and not let them loose, so to speak. We have to increase the status of teaching, and we also have to be aware of that future employers in the society demand diversity of our outcome, our students. Three more. We have to enhance our performance and our well-being. We have to increase the validity and the quality of what we're doing, and we have to remain relevant as a university. Fairness is well known. If you think and feel that you live in a fair organization, you feel better and you become more productive. Also, if you have a fair and open environment, inclusive environment, you will empower whistleblowers, and whistleblowers are essential for making your institutes better. And as I said, you need multiple pipelines. The validity and quality will increase because if you have more different people, you will also increase the dialogue and the critique, which we know is important in critical thinking. I also already mentioned the gendered research and innovation. To actually do that, I will come back to that. And you also get more perspective. How do you remain relevant? Well, if you have inequalities, it will create underperformance, especially of the people who feel that they're exposed to inequalities. And therefore, we have to improve diversity, and that will benefit all. So what I would like to recommend and send with you here then is that a 6th point when I'm trying to figure out what could be a start up. It should be a joined up program. That means all personnel and all students should be brought together and treated at the same time. It's also important not to separate discrimination grounds. We have intersectionality, we have intersections between it. They have to be treated at the same time. First of all, the first advice is appoint aware leaders. We should demand leaders to be not only knowledgeable, but also have experience of diversity work. Go to Ireland. In Ireland Higher Education Institution, this is a requirement. We need to have programs training, and they should be bifocal for leadership or for mentoring. What does that mean? Well, that means that you learn both for your career, but you also learn how the institutes work and what you can do to change them. And that is a teaching that goes to both mentors and mentees. We need to start to work, as already we pointed out, on inclusive teaching, and we also call it scientific literacy. For example, when science engineering students learn to be literate about the science and learn how to apply it, for example. And gendered research and innovation, where we actually ask how diversity and gender comes into the content of our research. We have to work on anti-bias and pro-meritocracy careers. That includes awareness training, that includes observers that observe what we're doing, and it's important to have transparent processes. And the 6th, I would like to say, we have to stop the horror of discrimination and harassment. And we know from Lund University in the recent Tell Us project how this is important, but the most important thing is to prevent it. And there it's a large learning to work on what is microaggression or non-events, which means the things that happens every day that become norms and excludes people. Might not look like much every time it happens, but if you're exposed to it every day, it will be molehills that creates a mountain. So there you are, some whys and some hows. And then of course I should finish by also saying, what are the evidence? Well, there are some small journals like Nature, for example, that writes about how diversity links to excellence. You can read about it there. Or if you don't like Nature, there are other small insignificant journals that are now bringing this up. Of course, joking apart, there is also a number of very good books and interesting literature coming out right now on how to, for example, create an inclusive academy. I recommend this one published in 2018, where they go through a lot of different research to show how to become inclusive. And also this is about gender, but I would say if you know about how to be inclusive when it comes to gender, you come a long way to also apply it to other diversity, excuse for the expression, issues. So here's, for example, actually coming out this year from the SAGE project. It's Gender Sensitive University. And recently here in Sweden, there is a question saying, does knowledge have a gender? And you can read some writing on that in this book, which is actually dedicated to Lisa Husu in Örebro University. So I have also some references, and I just want to finish by saying thank you so much for listening. Sorry for rushing through this, and hope some of it actually was possible to understand.
Thank you very much, Thomas. It was a very interesting presentation. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that our audience did as well. So thank you for teaching us so much in this very brief time. And we are right on time, I think, a few minutes late, and we will start the last section of this conference, which is the Q&A. I've seen that we have a lot of questions in the chat, so I will hand over to Shoshana, who will be in charge of the Q&A.
Thank you, Isabel. So correctly, we arrived to the last segment of our event, which is the Q&A session, and we are really grateful that so many of you were so active in the Q&A channel. Some of the questions are not actually questions, but rather statements. But since we asked you to share your ideas and opinions, we will make sure to read all of them. And any of the panelists want to reflect on these ideas or opinions, feel free to just jump in and share your opinions. So we received some highly upvoted questions. The first one is from Miaraduto. I'm sorry if I'm spelling your name incorrectly. I'm trying my best. She says, I'm a student from Portugal, and as I was seeing the video of a deafblind person saying that they learn at a different pace than other students, I wondered, would it be better for people with the same condition or conditions alike to study with specific methods for them apart from their class? Or is the institution in classes with people who don't have any type of learning difficulty important and needed? So I would like to ask Thomas Brage, what do you think about this question?
I assume that she asked the question whether we should have special classes, or well, who should be in a special class and who shouldn't? What is the norm and what is not? And I think it's a little bit of a dangerous idea. Of course, I think the best, we should of course be able to support people's different learning styles and whatever. But I'm not being an expert, but I think having special classes would not be the right road to go. It's kind of pointing out that there's someone that's different, that's the others, which is problematic.
I absolutely agree with you. Zoltan, do you have any ideas about this topic that you would like to share?
Well, what I wouldn't want to say again what Thomas said. What I could add is learning at a different pace may not have any consequences on what is happening in the classroom, for example. So there are, well, all of us learn in different paces, and it may not have anything to do with being deafblind or not being deafblind. So there are students with chronic illnesses, which affects their memories on the short run or long run, which is another kind of other form of diversity. Then should we have a different class for them as well? I think it's not working like that, and we would also lose the opportunity to create diverse groups, and opportunity to learn from this diversity, which was just the importance of this was just emphasized by Thomas, I think, very persuasively.
Thank you, both of you, for your answers. I would also like to encourage all of you that if you have a question, don't hold it in. So feel free to type it down, and we will make sure to include them in the Q&A as well. Okay, so the second, I think it's rather a statement, but I will read it because it's been really upvoted. Arish Kardosh said, I chose media since I believe that it can change human behaviors and attitude towards underrepresented groups. I think since nowadays we are surrounded by social media, Instagram, Facebook, TV, etc., and especially teens spend a lot of time on these sites, and teens are the next generation which we should focus on. So I think that it's the option to select. I honestly think it's a really good point of view. Any of the panelists want to reflect on this? If no, then we will continue.
Maybe,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just, it's a good point, but literacy in this field is also very important because all kinds of information can circulate through the media nowadays very easily. So critical thinking is also very important to add to this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We have another question from Peter Okiri. How does religious and social class or status influence the underrepresentation of students in our institutions? Thomas, would you care to share your opinion?
Yes, I mean, social class is, of course, the traditional well-studied dimension, so to speak, when it comes to underrepresentation, if you like. And that is, of course, still true. Class, then you always have to wonder what do you mean by class. But if one of the things that was pointed out by one of the young people in the videos were whether you have a background from parents with an academic background, and that is an important prerequisite to enter at least our prestigious universities. So for sure, I always say that class and gender is kind of going through all these discrimination grounds, and it's always visible, and it's always in a bit, because it's actually discrimination against majorities. So it's a special kind of case.
Yes, thank you. Zoltan, would you care to share your ideas?
Maybe I could just add one particular example from our city, and we had the chance to listen to the job done by the Christian Roma College here, which is typically there to try to compensate for those disadvantages that may arise from the background of coming from a Roma family in Hungary, which is, we must admit, is unfortunately, in most of the times, it's a huge disadvantage through, well, from the kindergarten to the university, and results in a much fewer chance to enter university at all.
Thank you so much. So I will continue with the next statement. Sorry, I'm not trying to pronounce your name because I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't manage to do it. But you said, I chose educational institutions because I believe that educational institutions are the most likely, not necessarily, to achieve fairness objectively. Political leaders need votes, and their positions will be influenced by the population groups that have more votes. Social media needs to be more profitable, and in a sense, by specific population groups that are more likely to create consumption behaviors. From the perspective of votes or consumption behavior, uneducated people account for a larger proportion, so it is impossible for statesmen and the media to play a real guiding role or even deepen the prejudice and discrimination in order to clear to the uneducated people. We need more education. I also think education is really important, and I can see that you're agreeing with me. Any one of you professors want to share your opinion? Maybe Zoltan?
I agree with this statement, though I also like to be always critical a little bit. So we cannot suppose that universities are not influenced by larger processes going on in the society. So we always have to critically reflect on our processes as well, and sometimes we can't be very proud of ourselves in this respect, to be honest. But I agree with the importance of education, especially if the education comes through different channels, supporting different schemes, learning and teaching methods. Yes.
Thank you. So I suggest, since we are lacking time, I will move forward and I will just read out the statements because I think it's really important to see what our audience thinks. And I will just address the question to the relevant panelist or professor. Okay, so Michael Niblum says it was too difficult to choose one answer regarding the polls. Basically, we are all responsible for creating equal opportunities for all. And I guess we couldn't agree more with this statement, but really wanted you to share your ideas and opinions on the subject. Mia Reduto has another question. She asks, how do you think far-right parties have an impact on discrimination? Because in my country, Portugal, and in others across Europe, it seems the two things are connected, as if the far right is a safe place for racist and homophobic people. Should we stop the rise of these parties, or should we leave it to the people who vote to decide? What if the majority of the people chooses far right? Thomas Braga, would you care to share your
Yes,
idea?
I mean, of course we should, it's a duty of a university to answer claims that are not founded in knowledge or science. So, I mean, for example, the far right is very often essentialistic, with they think there are essential differences between people who make them less or more fit to do a career and work in the academia, for example. And that is, of course, very easy to prove it's wrong, and all modern science has proven it wrong, or there's no support for it, at least. So, I mean, of course, the universities need to engage in this where this debate and also bring up clear research that shows, I mean, because the extremists are not based on facts usually. On contrary, the idea is to kind of mix fact with opinions and make everything in a sort of a strange relativism that anything you say is equally worth. So yes, the universities have a duty to answer these extremists.
Thank you so much. I have another question directed to Thomas Brage. I heard about some universities in New York oblige their teachers to ask their students their pronouns. How important do you think is that? Is that a good procedure and a good start for inclusion? I guess we can link this to the previous question as well. Like it's really important for higher educational institutions to include all students and teachers as well.
So this is the Jordan-Peterson debate, I guess. It's about pronouns, and of course, I mean, how much effort is it to actually to use the kind of pronouns that people want them to be called, so to speak? What is the problem here? Why is that so hard for people to accept? And why has it become an issue that some people would not like to be addressed he or she, or not the he or she that we expect, and so on. So I think this is an important. It won't solve our problems to find deferred pronouns, like my friends from Finland say. They have not a difference between he or she. That hasn't made it more equal. But of course, meeting people, we have to do it with respect. And if this is their wish, what is really the problem? The only thing is, like I said, it's also something beautiful when life becomes more complex, right? Because you understand that people are different. So, yeah.
Thank you. I have a question for Zoltán Bajmóci from Dominika Szögi from Szeged. She asked, do you think our city, Szeged, is doing a good job at creating accessible environment for people with any kind of disabilities? Is there anything that the city or its leaders could do better at this? What do you recommend for us as university students to do directly or indirectly to help people with disabilities?
Okay, so the city could do much better. I've seen some positive changes though in the last few years, which is very often due to the very hard work of disability advocating organizations. So some of the organizations, especially the organization of blind people and the people with physical disability, are more and more consulted before decision making in the city. On the other hand, they still have to fight for making their voice heard, so the change is very slow. And this is a common issue, I think, of the city and the university. Many buildings in the city center are actually university buildings, so mobility in the city, restaurants, cafes, and their accessibility are well, joint issues, I think, of the city and our university. And what students can do, what I would recommend is start with some volunteering. It's a great opportunity to learn, to connect to other people, and to have a more in-depth knowledge about these issues. Many of these organizations are open for volunteering students. We also have a course dedicated to this in the university, so it's also an opportunity to connect to this so-called service learning course.
Thank you so much for your insights. I actually have one more question for you. It's actually a personal question for me. I listened to the video testimonies, and one of the testimonies, there was an interesting idea that hit my ear. And one of the students said that they believe that this whole issue of underrepresentation will have a natural course of resolving itself, with more future generations coming in with more open-minded views and personalities. So I was just wondering, do you think that this would actually indeed happen, or there always be people with prejudices, or some groups will continue facing unequal treatment?
Well, if only that was the case, that it resolved itself. No, it's unfortunately, it's much more complex than this. Just to mention a few things, people who are very open to certain kinds of inequalities may be still very blind for other kinds of inequalities. It's very hard to resolve all these issues together, well, some of these issues can be very well solved by providing more knowledge and information. Some of these issues are actually more political, and they are really struggling for power, which makes it a bit more complex. And just to add a last thing, many of these problems and many members of underrepresented groups are still invisible for the majority society. And if they remain invisible, then we won't build perception, knowledge, and the desire to solve that issue. And we're still in this situation. I think we cannot assume an automatic solution for these issues. It is a joint responsibility we have, I think, to take a step further. So that's it from my side.
Thanks so much. All right, so I think now it's time to end our Q&A session. We received plenty of comments and statements and questions, and we will make sure to send them over to our professors and panelists so they can answer them. And we will send out all the replies to you by email. And also, if you have any question after this event, make sure to write us a message and ask your questions via our Facebook channel, and we will make sure to project your question into the relevant person, and we'll make sure that you will have an answer. So I guess it's also very important to keep the communication up, not just during these events, but also for the upcoming future. So right now, we reached the end of our conference, and we are very, very happy to have had all of you here, and we are so happy to see all of the audience that participated in the Q&As as well. Many thanks to all of our panelists and presenters, all students, and all of our colleagues who were helping us and supporting us in the background. And we really hope that you have enjoyed our event, and you will also attend our future and upcoming events. And we really hope that this event helped you to gain more insight, and basically you benefited from this session, and it played a role in your ideas about underrepresentation. So right now I will hand the floor over to Isabel.
Yes, and I just also want to say thank you to everyone. And just a quick reminder that our next session will be on March 16 on the topic of accessibility. And we will publish more information about this on the UGLO website, uglo.eu, and also on our social media. And also you can see the link in the chat where we'll also publish this entire session. So thank you very much. And also we would love to know your opinions. So when you sign off from Zoom, you will have a short survey that we will be really happy if you could answer. So Thank you so much to everyone, both attendees and panelists, and have a lovely day. Thank you and goodbye.